In this video, we will be reviewing how to solve absolute value equations. We'll start with absolute value equations in their simplest form. This equation reads that the absolute value of a number is 7. There are two numbers that when I take the absolute value of them give me 7. They are 7 and -7. Both of these equations, or both of these values, make this equation true. If I plug it in to check, absolute value of 7 equals 7. Absolute value is 7, so that works. And then if I plug in absolute value of -7, absolute value of -7 is 7, so that is also true. In this equation, it says the absolute value of a number is -2. Well, we know that absolute value always results in a positive number, so this is not possible. Therefore, there is no solution. Increasing the difficulty by one step, I have a 2x in there. So when I look at this equation, I know that the absolute value of this expression has to equal 8. Well, there's two things that can be. That can either be 8 or that can either be -8. That gives me two different equations to solve to give me my two different values for x that make that equation true. In this case, I get 4 and -4. Looking at this type of equation, there are two values for this x plus 7 that will give me an absolute value of 10. That will yield that value when x plus 7 is 10 or when x plus 7 is -10. So those are the two equations that I have to solve. I'm going to subtract 7, so I get a value of x is 3. And when I subtract 7 over here, because it's a -10, I get a value of a -17. Let's plug it in to check. I go back to my original equation. I plug in a 3. Absolute 3 plus 7 is 10. Absolute value of 10 equals 10. When I plug in the -17 to check to see if that's true, -17 plus 7 is a -10. But I know the absolute value of -10 is 10, so that is also true. In this equation, I want to know the two values that are going to give me an absolute value of 17. So I'm going to say 2x minus 1 equals 17, and 2x minus 1 equals -17. Gives me two equations to solve to get my two different answers. When I solve here, I get a value of 9. And this one's going to be different. And when I divide by 2 here, I get -8. I'm going to go ahead and check both of those answers. I'm going to do 2 times 9 minus 1. I'm going to check to see if that equals 17. (18 minus 1 is 17. The absolute value of 17 is 17, so that checks. Let me check my other answer here. Plug in a -8. See if that equals 17. 2 times a -8 is a -16 minus 1. That is a -17, but I know the absolute value of -17 is 17. So that equation is also true. Last one here. When I look at this equation, I notice that this absolute value is equal to a -2. There's no number that when I take its absolute value is going to give me a negative number. So as soon as I see this here, I know that there is no solution in the real number system that's going to make that true. So there's no solution when I have the absolute value equal to a negative number.